Hey everyone, quick little announcement here from Fishing the DMV. Our Weekend Warrior package on Patreon is nearly full. There are only 44 spots that are still available. Once these spots are gone, they're gone, and the Weekend Warrior tier will be closed to the general public. All members will be locked in indefinitely at a fantastic price point, and they will get all the benefits that they have today, plus any new benefits and discounts that will be added in the future. All Weekend Warriors will receive 5% off their orders to Jake's Bait and Tackle, 10% off their orders to Tiger Crankbaits, 10% off their orders to Catoctin Creek Rod. They'll also gain access to our private Facebook group community, loads of members-only content. And in 2025, there are going to be tournaments that will be given a massive discount specifically to our Weekend Warrior members. Plus, if you sign up for the year right now, you will get 8% off your already fantastically discounted rate to join the Weekend Warrior program. Link in the episode description. Thank you. You're listening to Fishing the DMV with your host, Thomas Ahrens. Fishing the DMV is brought to you by Jake's Bait and Tackle, located in Winchester, Virginia.
If that doesn't get you jacked up, I don't know what will.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Monday Night Live here on Veterans Day. Hopefully you were able to get out there with a veteran, salute them, or just give them this, hey, thanks for your service. It was a great day today, just temperature-wise, a lovely day to be outside, a lovely weekend to be outside, honestly, as we get here into November. My God, it's weird. I feel like 2 Novembers ago, it was cold, and now I feel like we're finally getting the fall weather. It's weird. It's really weird, man. This guy I've been wanting to have on the show a bunch. He worked on my boat and got all the electronics to work on my poor little cancer-ridden Ranger boat. He is a avid angler, a boater for the New Horizon Anglers. He got the title for his company from that great club that Charlie Taylor made, and he is a legendary co-angler where, you know, he's expected, or he thinks he's just going to make money in each tournament he rolls into. Now that I've hyped him up enough, the man, the myth, the legend, Greg, New Horizon Boat Builds. Thank you for coming on today, sir.
Thanks for having me, buddy.
You've been a busy bee.
Yeah. The recent, just this recent weekend, it's been hectic, but it's been fun.
Let's see. You had tournament success, which we'll get into later, but then you also had sponsorship success. I saw Timmy Sheridan, who won the Veterans Day tournament today, gave you a huge shout out for what you did for his boat.
Yeah, I saw I got tagged in a post. I haven't looked at it. I just saw my phone go off. But I've actually been a sponsor of his for the season. He's been a wonderful client. I think I've worked on his boat about 7 different times. And we've outfitted it to the gills.
Is he that abusive with his equipment, or?
Not necessarily, no. But we've done different setups. We had Humminbird Mega Live, and then we had new Powerhouse lithium batteries added. We've had live scope transducers added, a second one added, a replacement, and then we've had Helix, Solix, Garmin 106. We've done a lot, and we're going to do lighting soon, which I'm excited about, because I get to do like real good, nice electrical work. It's fun.
It's crazy just with how much you do all by yourself, and again, like, and your setup too, like where you're doing it. And I know you have, I don't know if you've made that announcement yet about those big plans eventually, but that'll be really cool when that's allowed to be talked about.
I can talk about it now.
Oh, you can? Okay, cool. So I didn't want to spoil it, but go for it.
Yeah. So I am currently looking, I'm working with several contractors to have a 30-foot by 40-foot facility built at my new house. So we're going to move the business from Palmyra, Virginia to Fork Union, which is south by about 15 minutes. And the driveway is not 450 feet long. So you can pull straight in and we can take care of you that way.
That was fun. If you guys wanted to have service back before we got his fancy new facility, you needed to make sure you could back up pretty effectively. What have you seen really evolve with electronics games? Because I think you and I were texting over the summertime when the drama was really dropping with forward-facing sonar and everything. And now you have trolling motor brakes. You have guys throwing 3 or 4 black boxes. I mean, it's pretty crazy the amount of output people are expecting from their batteries.
Yeah, so with a design and a build that complex, or outlandish, really, I've never seen anything like that here. It's really been on the Elite Series and with NPFL and the Bass Pro Tour. But with those new regulations being added for the 2025 season, I don't expect to ever see anything like that come my way. It's usually, live scope setup, one transducer, not four. But we've done several battery swaps or battery installations, and we've done 4 or 5 at the most. But just with the regional angler, it's very unlikely that we're going to have two 100 amp hour batteries come through to the power 6 rafts. It's I think that's kind of up for the top echelon, but that's being limited from
It
now
is.
on.
It's absolutely, it's impressive because when you put all that stuff on, you don't understand how much work goes into that to get that all to work. You don't just throw on 6 graphs and then turn on the on switch and everything fires. There's a ton of work that people like yourself have to do to make that thing hum.
That's right. Yeah, and especially if it gets pretty complicated, or complex is really the word to describe it. With say Lowrance, we've had a couple clients come through for one boat network, one boat system. So you've got 2 HDS Pros, the Lowrance Ghost, the Point One, and then the NEMA 2000 connections, Ethernet, power. And if you go on Facebook or Instagram, I have some of the in progress photos, and it looks crazy. But at your end result, everything's labeled, so you could put a 5-year-old in the boat, and they'll be able to tell you what circuit's wet, and be able to trace that out.
Mm.
It's troubleshooting a breeze, down the road, if anything were to occur, and you can trace out circuits, Ethernet, and you can know what's going to what.
One question that we talked about last spring, as I pull it from my memory banks here, was about lithium and storing and stuff, which was not probably the best time to talk about that because it was like late February, March. But now that we're going into the winter season, you have a person that just bought a fantastic $2,000 lithium battery. Can they just store that in their boat all winter like you would do a regular battery, or is there different ways to protect it?
So every battery has a spec sheet, and if you go through the install or the manual that's included with every purchase for every major brand, you will see that they have a set of guidelines for properly maintaining, charging, when not to charge it, depending on temperature. If your boat stays outside, rule of thumb, and don't quote me on this, but rule of thumb is don't have that battery removed. But like I said, this all goes through manufacturer recommendation. And if you don't have that, you can email us, and I can have that provided.
I think that's good information there because it's insane like how savvy our boats are getting with technology. And again, guys, I think there's a diagram there. Like the more technology you add, the more variables that go wrong, the more you have to baby it. And speaking of babying it, I have really been thinking about switching away from power poles because I really wanted the Talon 15 footers, but I have friends that are terrified of using those in tidal situations with the mud and stuff. But you have them. Like, do you feel like they still have enough power for like tidal water mucky bottoms?
They did exceptionally well this past weekend on the Potomac. I I had a 13-pound limit that I caught in 15 minutes, just about 13, with my talons down outside of the aquaquan. It was not a hard bottom. It was mostly sand. And I've had those talons now in my boat for, this is coming, April 20th was the first time at use in 2018. So I'm coming up on 7 years, and I absolutely love them. And the reason being is I think human beings have absolutely mastered the science of DC motors. It is one of the most efficient pieces of equipment or motor or mechanism that we've created. And there's no pumps involved with talons. You take the leads, connect to your battery or a terminal bar, and then you can have a isolation switch. Just so it, you're going to run power after, out of your battery after a couple of days, but that's besides the point. But as far as reliability goes, it's my top pick, hands down.
I'm gonna have to make a note of that then while I start shopping here in 2025. And then, guys, if you have some boating questions, please drop a comment here. I know I don't have Greg all night tonight, but drop a comment, and I'll also put a link to all of New Horizon Boat Builds information in the episode description when this gets re-uploaded. The last big question I have on the boating front here is, Milliken and a couple of guys on Bassmaster Live made famous the idea of going to 16 volt and 17 volt batteries. These just insanely big gonky things just to clean up the picture of their live scope. Is that dangerous, or is there validity to that thought process?
Okay, so with the 16 volt, and what we're going to use Powerhouse for an example, and I actually am working with the client right now. I'm texting with him, trying to get his battery set up to make an order soon. And we have Humminbird, Garmin, and Lowrance. The control heads operate on a voltage between 12 and 20 with Garmin and Humminbird. With Lowrance, with the HDS Live and the HDS Pros, they run on 12 at a minimum of 12 volts to 17.2, 17.3. So what you don't want to do is charge that battery with your control head powered on. You want it completely off, completely isolated, because what'll happen is when you're applying a charge to that battery, it's not 16 volts anymore. It's actually about a volt higher. It's probably around the 17.5 range, and that can burn up the control head. But with Garmin, across their EcoMap, GPS map, they're perfectly safe. As long as you stay inside that operating range, that 12 to 20 range, you're golden. And it does clean up the picture. That is a fact. If you have the proper wiring, it's basically what it'll do is, the way I've had it explained to me, is it supercharges the LCD display. So it's giving you a crisper, more energized, really, in clarity. And also it decreases the amperage, because amperage and voltage are inversely proportionate. So at 12 volts, you might have a load at 5 amps. 16 volts, you might have a load at 3.5, closer to 4. So you're actually going to get more runtime off the 16 volt than you would 12.
Interesting. That's fascinating. And would one of those be able to run 360 live for 10 to 15 hours?
Oh, absolutely. Yep.
Dude, that's awesome stuff. We got Timmy in the chats here. Other than the LV34 I ripped off in half last week, everything's been working great. Powerhouse all of the way. Yep, 100%. I've heard really, really good things about their batteries. Over on Instagram, we have Jimmy Goes Fishing says, Greg rewired my boat and installed live scope. Amazing work. I remember the other question I had before we switch into the fun stuff, which is, have you thought about dabbling in the kayak build industry? Because I know kayaking and throwing electronics and stuff is really hot too.
I've talked to a few of the clubs at specifically the Dale City show back in the winter. I have not had a kayak come by, but please feel free to call me or email me or text me, because I would love to get my hands on a kayak.
All right, we'll make that. We'll make that happen one way or the other in 2025. Here we go. Big D TV has, how much does he charge to install live? I'm assuming a live scope.
$350. All my work is unit priced.
Boom.
Not by the hour.
And also, I think this is important to say, like, you customize everything. It's a very good hands-on experience when you work with Greg with everything that you do, and you don't have to drive to the ass end of the world like Tennessee or Alabama, which is awesome. Now, good, got all the questions. Okay, perfect. We got all those questions lined up. Anything else on the business side of thing before we dabble into the fun fishing stuff?
So our busy season started in the beginning of October. Normally, it starts in around Christmas is when I start getting emails and phone calls. And I've had at least 3 clients in the past week that I'm scheduling around now and working on their design. So I've got a lot of work ahead, but it's going to be fun. I love it.
Are you ever going to think about taking on an apprentice? Is that a thought in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. I, I would definitely see having an apprentice or a technician of some sort assisting or possibly installing, and as long as it's approved by me and I find it quality work, then we're good. We can do it.
Yeah, just so you can enjoy the family and actually go fishing and not just be slaving away in the wee hours in the morning.
Well, luckily I run New Horizon at night, so I start work at 7 p.m. and I work until about 11 or 12. And then I'm an electrical draftsman or coordinator by day. So I rotate through 5 projects, and they're priced between two and shoot at this point 2 and 6 million, 2 and 8 million. So I'm taking care of that during the day. I come home, I do my family stuff, and then I start working at 7. And I've cranked out several boats in just the past couple weeks, and it's all done at night.
When do you fish?
On the weekends, I try to keep the separate. So I Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday nights or work nights, and then Saturday and Sunday if I have a tournament or if I have the ability to get out, then I do.
You had a heck of a season this year, whether it was from the front of the boat or the back of the boat. I mean, guys, like this, he's an absolute accomplished angler. Don't take my word for it. Look at all the hardware in the back of the shelf there. What was a big takeaway that you could reflect on? Let's start with, I mean, the co-angling side of things. Like as a co-angler, what's one big thing you could reflect on as a positive from the season?
Well, before we get into that, I want to run through my stats just so
Go for
I'm
it.
I have something to say, and I'm not a you don't know who I am. So I've competed with MLF or FLW. This is my 8th season. I've competed in 58 tournaments, all as a co-angler, with 11 top tens, $23,000 in career earnings, which isn't a lot, but it's not bad for the back of the boat with 0 wins. And then I've got all of the FLW trophies on this side, and then all of the MLF and TBF up top.
That's awesome.
Like the classified by era.
I like how you did that.
So,
But
as far as the takeaway this year, I have had more fun. I'm still as competitive as I was when I was 16, 17. I'm 31 now. But I'm still as competitive, but I have more fun, and it takes all of the pressure off. And with my mentality with tournament fishing is I'm completely neutral. I have no expectation of zeroing, and I have no expectation of winning. And it allows me to just be completely natural and think and take every spot, every area that I go to, and treat it like a pond and approach it in that way and compete with myself and not with my boater. And I keep that fine line so they stay happy and they can concentrate and do their thing, and then I do my little thing in the back.
when did it start clicking for you? Or was it always, did it always click?
I struggled a lot my first year competing, I would say in 2010. I weighed in, I think the most in 5 tournaments. I weighed in 2 or 3 fish. Actually, 3 fish. I've got the first check up there that I ever cashed for $26. Big fish on Kerr in April 14th of 2010. Um, and it took me probably up until 2018 when I joined the FLW tour as a co-angler. I cashed 6 out of 7 checks in a season, and I only missed one on Lewis Smith. And that's when it really, the more time I fished, the calmer I was, the better I would do completely.
When you talk about, I can see him in the comment section right now, Big DTV, who did his first year as a co-angler. And there is a big difference, I think, when you are on the back of the boat versus the front. And
Mhm.
part of it is decision making. And before we get into all the fun drama and stuff, but just as an angling perspective, is it something where you got to just stop worrying about what you can't control? Because I feel like more so with a co-angler than a boater, there's a lot of variables that are out of your control. The boat draw. Is he going to back boat you? All those things. And it's almost like it's mentally harder to be in the back because you've got to block all that stuff out and just be like, I'm going to make lemonade with lemons, so to speak.
Right. Yeah. As far as that goes, I I stay as positive as I can be, and I approach every cast as if I'm going to nail them. It's there. I stay super optimistic, super positive. I'm not worried about what spot I go to. I pack super light. I carry, one tackle bag that probably weighs about 5 pounds at the most, and then 5 rods. And I've kept that same setup for 14 years now, and it's really produced. And it's you have to separate yourself from any potential anxiety that might come about. And that's when I go back to keeping that real neutral feeling and just fishing, because it makes 8 hours slow way down compared to if you start getting panicky or question your decisions, or it'll cause you to make mistakes in that way.
How hard was it to switch? So you didn't just go co-angling and then you transitioned to boater and that's it.
No.
You are a co-angler and a boater. Is
Yeah.
there any kind of friction mentally when you have to bounce back and forth like that?
No. It's worked pretty well for me. I started fishing as a boater once I bought my first bass boat in 2011, and I fished with the TBF. I fished with New Horizon, and it was a mixture. It was as a boater and a co-angler, depending on whatever the situation was. But with FLW and MLF, I was strictly a co-angler. And I originated doing that because I just wanted to learn, because I had this overall goal of fishing the FLW tour at the time. And I went through my apprenticeship. I graduated trade school in 2017. That was the same time I worked for Lake Master, and it allowed me to fish the tour. And my overall goal was, if I qualified, if you make the top 10 in AOY, you get a invitation to fish the FLW on the pro side, which I did. I finished 9th that year, and there was a lot of life changes happening at the end of that season, and great ones too. Absolutely awesome life changes. So I had to pass on that opportunity, but I still have the acceptance letter. It's somewhere back here, but
We should make sure, since it's been a while since you've been on the show, for my new audience members, you kind of glossed over it. You worked for Lake Master?
I did. Yeah, in 2016 I fished 2 BFL divisions and did terribly. It was a terrible outcome, but I still qualified for both regionals. And in the month of October, I double qualified for the All-American, almost winning at Kerr and Hartwell about 2 weeks apart. And fast forward to Pickwick in 2017, I got drawn with the Justin Atkins, he was on the he's Elite Series Pro now, but 2017 was his rookie season, and he went on to win the FLW tour, or the Forcewood Cup, 2 months later. And at the time, he also worked for Lake Master. Him and I hit it off. I was very forward and asked him, said, "Hey, I'd love to be able to go in that direction." He says, "Absolutely." He got me in contact with Lake Master, and I went from working in a cubicle to a month later, I had a work visa from Canada to start surveying up in Lake St. Clair, the Detroit River, and St. Clair River.
That is such a cool story, dude. I mean, even it's one of those things where it's not about the money. It's almost about having the memory, having that to be just to hold on to the rest of your life. Like, oh, here's a cool thing to talk about at a cocktail party, so to speak. That's wild.
Yeah. And I don't have a home office. I've got a beautiful setup at my office up in Charlottesville, and everything that you see behind me is hours worth. I mean, every trophy you see, I can talk for about an hour for about every detail you could think of. And then I've got some awesome trinkets up there that I've, just life-changing moments. So it's
Well,
if you ever come to my basement, you've got a bookcase full of awesome fun stories.
we'll have to hear some of those and have a specific show talking about your memories. It, is there anything then with this year that stuck out to you when it came to, because I believe there's a big thing with how the co-angler payouts were. Like this was your last year for a lot of you guys to make a crack at a boat and things like that, correct?
Yeah, so as everyone can kind of tell, we've got a little, we're in a rough pickle with the economy. And with the BFLs, there's been a lot of restructuring with MLF, and the BFLs got hit this time for 2025. For as far back as I can remember, probably the early 2000s, you had the opportunity at each regional, whether you were a boater or co-angler, to win a brand new 18 or 19-foot bass boat. And I've been in contention twice, leading one regional, and lost that by about 2 pounds. And yeah, yeah. But yeah, with 2025 coming, they've taken the regional top prize from $50,000 bass boat to $20,000. Not bad, but also it's being played as it's a good thing, which that's a big, that's a rough numbers. That's a 60% decrease in payout.
Yeah, it is. It's not. And this is the thing is like the big lie. And I covered this last week. Huge shout out to everyone that's made that go viral. It's got like over like 6,000 downloads and it's over 1,000 on YouTube. But it's corporate being corporate. It's being like, hey guys, I got great news. I'm firing half of you, but this is a tactical shrink or some corporate lingo stuff. And that's what they're doing here with the no entry fees or the BFLs. It's they're in it to make money. It's not about being philanthropic and helping out your fellow angler. It's about how they make money and how do they stop losing money. And so with what they're doing with the co-anglers and everything, they are feeling it. And they can't. And for everyone that has commented on those other videos, they can't come out and say like, guys, guess what? The economy, it sucks. Like they can't and won't say that.
Yeah, and with MLF and FLW and Bass, I think they're great organizations. They've made some questionable choices in business in the past 6 years. I'd say since 2019 was when it went from being normal and consistent to just an up and down since then. And I'm not here, I'm not on here to complain or anything, but there's been some increase in entry fees. The regional is no longer free. You have to pay for that. The super tournament, the 2 day at the last qualifying event of the year, that's gone up in price. But the normal qualifying events, $110 from the back of the boat, and for a chance at a full field, which we've had up to 200 boats. I'd say probably with 160 average throughout the season. That's close to a $3,000 payout, and to me, that's a hell of a deal. I couldn't complain about that. So there is some positives and there are also some negatives, but I feel like it's a from an economical standpoint, it's not great where we're headed, but hopefully we recover.
A lot has been said, and some of it on this channel, but on other social media platforms as well, like the death of the co-angler or waning. And more, do you think that is true? Do you think it's an evolution of the sport because of kayaking and solo events being more prevalent? Like, what are your thoughts on the situation?
I've made friends with a lot of the boaters that I fish with over the years. I mean, some of them are absolute best friends of mine and just really wonderful people. And the biggest complaint that I have heard is etiquette. It's treating that boat as if it were yours, not competing for water, being respectful of their decisions. And me personally, unless I am asked, I am perfectly invisible in the back of the boat. I'll keep a conversation going if you want to, but otherwise you don't know I'm back there. And I just do my own thing, and I'm respectful and make sure that my boater doesn't have an issue. just to make the day better. And I've had plenty of success by that standard, and it's really helped.
So we've been delaying this question for a while, but here it is. So the forward facing sonar one, blah blah blah. How do you as a co-angler deal with forward facing sonar and all that jazz?
I have only had two tournaments. They were both regionals where forward facing really came into play, and it was lining up the brush piles. Here's the thing. With largemouth, they don't always set up directly in that brush pile. And both my boaters were focusing on that, one at Murray and one at Kerr. And I politely asked, hey, you mind if I get to the left of you? And there's, yeah, no problem. They focused on the brush pile. I got about 15 feet to the left. And if you get on LiveScope and you get up to your favorite brush piles that you've marked, say on Anna, they can wander pretty far out. It really opened us up into what, the nature activity is really going on. Because I mean, other than that, it was always a guessing game. But there usually are a couple roamers that they won't tuck to it, but they'll stay out 10, 15 feet occasionally. So whenever I'd have that opportunity, it was, you gave me a loaded gun and I took the shot, but I needed to hit that target that's a bass, but and sometimes it panned out, sometimes it didn't. But overall, I haven't really come into it like some of the guys out in the Midwest or in the South where they're chasing suspended fish over 100 feet of water, chasing, blue heron or anything like that. It's effective. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. No. You go ahead.
It's definitely been a issue with a lot of co-anglers in like Table Rock or Hartwell, something along that line. But for what we have in Virginia and the northern part of North Carolina, it's too bad.
So it sounds like you've had relative success then in those live scope, so to speak, tournaments. Do you keep your presentation simple then too, with what you're throwing at those scoping kind of events? Because the reason I hit down on it, this is the one thing I think all anglers say, like, this is the annoying thing is somebody's up there scoping and I'm in the middle of nowhere, and it's basically I might as well put my rods away because it's hopeless.
Yeah, I going back to what I said, I stay just extremely positive, and every cast is an opportunity. And I do approach it from more of a finesse standpoint than more of a power fishing. I would call it that. And I've struggled in those tournaments, but I can pick up one or two. And if there's something changes to where you've got fish shallow, you've got fish deep, it gives you opportunity when you get there. It's just not 100% of that 8 hours. So you have to make what you have around you work, or at least try to, and really capitalize on any opportunity you can.
With that said, does that mean you really focus on more finessey things to where you can really let it soak in the water, since you don't have unlimited places you can cast? So is that kind of your mindset going into it? What can I throw in here consistently just to soak it?
Yeah. So every co-angler event that I've ever fished, I only take 5 rods.
That's
and
impressive.
I like to keep it as simple as possible. And the best tournaments that I've done, I've locked one rod in my hand the entire day, and I just made it work. And I had two 14th place finishes, one on Smith Mountain, and a second place finish on the James back in July. And I caught all of my fish on a shaky head, and I didn't touch another rod the entire 8 hours. And that's where that trophy's from, right there. That new puppy. But
shaky head, dude, is so powerful. Like, do you prefer that, generally speaking, versus a drop shot? Because I know Potomac guys, they're really torn on drop shot versus shaky head.
See, with the Potomac, that is, as far as I know, the number one co-angler friendly, equal opportunity.
Yeah, true. Employer.
Yeah. You have 360 degrees worth of grass. You can't not fish whatever you don't, whatever you want. And it's wonderful, really. With the 14th place finish I had back in June on the Potomac, we both caught 13 and 15 pounds, 13 on my side, 15 on the boater side in Belmont Bay, and we never left. But we caught him he caught him on topwater. I caught him on a swim jig, and flipping. Yeah, I had one fish flipping, and then everything else was on the swim jig, and I just did my own thing, and made it work, and never had an issue.
Guys, please get your questions in now, because this guy is like one of the best co-anglers out there. So if you have a question about how to fish from the back of the boat, or just being consistent in fishing an area, this is a great time to get your questions answered while we have him. The James River, dude, like when you do these, I don't think we touched on this. Do you pre-fish, or do you just finish wiring a boat the night before and then head off to the event?
It depends. If I have the opportunity to go down the day before, I'll either fish off of a friend's boat, or I'll actually take mine with me. And that's like how I did on the Potomac this year. I went and stayed up at Mattawoman Creek, put in with my boat. I put in 13 hours pre-fishing, got an idea, and what I'll do if you do have the opportunity to have your own bass boat and to fish out of it, I will find the most community hole, just the highest percentage places that you would immediately go to. I'll fish that, and that kind of gives me an idea of where the lake's at, what time of the year it is, that sort of detail. And then I'll kind of fine tune it the next day and kind of go off of anything that I could pick up on that day of pre-fishing.
Could you? I'm so glad you highlighted that. I've talked a lot about the Japanese version of fishing, how they think, and that kind of goes in line with that. It's like the highest percentage area, and they would say high percentage. Over here, it's like, oh, you just mean where the retreads are, or just like that. That's the community hole. Like, it's a negative connotation with it. It's like you need to be in the back room doing algorithms and finding a super secret spot, not like this is obviously on a map. There's fish here.
Mm. Yeah. So I don't necessarily fish release areas like Leesylvania State Park. I stay away from that. I've never fished in there in probably 10 years. But I'll fish popular areas like Belmont Bay, High Point, or Mattawoman, or up Pohick, something along those lines.
Nutbush, things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And something relatively close. So, if you, and sometimes you don't even get anywhere near that. And I had that happen to in a regional last year on the Potomac, and I fished in Mattawoman. I knew it was going to be tough in October, and I ended up going the total opposite direction all the way in the very, very back of Aquia Creek both days. And so my practice was irrelevant, and but it makes you get really it makes you better of making decisions and completely throwing everything that you had out the window and starting from scratch. It'll really fine tune that process, and it's helped me a lot. I can completely forget let details go and start from fresh, and I'm not constantly going through the same thing that I did the day before. And I'm guilty of it, and I do that occasionally, but I've gotten, I've improved away from that in the recent years.
We got a couple of great comments here. Let's see. Shaky head is what I caught most my key fish on at the Bass Nation Trail on Grand Lake for the Bass Nation National Championship on Grand Lake. Let's see. Josh says fishing spawn tournaments for smallies sucks, especially behind floggers. I couldn't imagine how hellish that is. Travis is a good question. Travis, you just want a gift card to Tiger Crankbait, so just message me on Facebook, Instagram, or email me at fishingthedmv.com. Being a co-angler, have you brought out your own live scope set up at a tournament?
I have not. I have seen. I'm I'm on the Bass website and MLF pretty religiously, and I always like to study the boats that come in because gives me ideas. It's nice. It's like Etsy for inspiration. But
That's awesome.
the and I've only seen two setups in the past 2 years. It hasn't taken off, but I'm sure that there's a couple people who I've seen it happen.
Yeah, you hit this earlier. If you live at a High Rock, a Hartwell, TVA system, maybe like it would make sense to have that. But when half your tournaments are the James River and the Potomac, like, do you need it?
It-
No.
with the Potomac, and especially like the tournament I fished this past weekend, I used live scope when I was actually inside of the Aquaquan, just and it wasn't just targeting fish, it was just finding them. And I found some that were just scattered out in some, and I call them trash piles. It was really debris around some of the major bridges, possible trestle, and I was able to fill out my limit doing that. And wasn't casting specifically to them. I just knew in where they were in the vicinity, and I could, and I was like, okay, they're there. And then I just did my own thing and caught them.
That's really smart, dude. And then you had your New Horizon tournament here to finish out the year,
Mhm.
out of Occoquan River. How did
Yep.
that go?
So I finished second overall. I think we had about 20 members fish that one. I had 13 pounds, 1 ounce Saturday, and then I had 9 pounds, 3 ounces on Sunday. And that was one of the best fall classics we've had in years. You didn't have to get finessey the first day. And as soon as I put my boat in the water on my Helix unit, the water temperature at 62 at Fountainhead or no, not Fountainhead. Uh,
Woodbridge?
yeah, and off the right by the 123. And I went, okay, there's a grass bite. And like I said on the podcast last year, this is right around the time where it completely dies for a very short period of time, like a day, and then next day it's nothing, and it's off to the docks. And I went, caught my limit, put my talons down in 10 to 20 minutes. I had practically all my weight, 13.2, 13.1. And
Wow.
and then after I had that, I said, well, my smallest fish is 2.5 pounds. I could go sit in the marinas at this time, catch fish, but they're not going to break that. So I picked out the jig, which I hand tied myself. So I picked out a 1/2 ounce flipping jig, Arky, and then a glide bait, 7 inch, 2 ounce glide bait. And I went out past the marinas and started fishing anything that was windblown. And it was right around when the tide was starting to come out. So I had gone and fished a bunch of stuff all throughout Belmont Bay, all throughout the Aquaquan, just random stuff that I don't typically do, just to eliminate it, and know that Sunday I could fine tune it and spend time, all of my 8 hours in two different areas, and completely bash their brains in. And day two, the water temperature did not get over 60. It topped out at about 59. And I was able to catch them out of the grass. And now the tide's about an hour out. So first day, dead low was 747. Second day, dead low was 845-ish. And I fished there until about 10:30. Said, okay, I've got three. I lost two quality and went back into the back under the Route 1. And I sat there and I fished a jig, and as slow as possible. And they ate it, and I filled out my limit and finished up in second. So it was one of those, and it was a much tougher day too. I mean, nothing as bad as what last year was, but this year was definitely tougher day too.
You mentioned something interesting there when you talk about eliminating water and doing the windblown point thing. Is the windblown point thing consistent on the Potomac River? Because it's so unique. Because that sounds like a lake thing, but a lot of people probably wouldn't have thought of, oh, that works on a river too.
Well, it wasn't what I did wasn't necessarily on windblown points. It was grass parts of the grass flat in Belmont Bay that I haven't fished regularly. It was some marinas that I don't really frequent much. Some stretches off in the main river, and I say the main river, the Occoquan, and it was just to go, hey, let's eliminate all of this stuff. And I had the opportunity to do that. If I hadn't had my limit at 8 o'clock in that morning, I would have had to be more conservative. And I got to be way more extreme and kind of branch out and get a little bit more risky and branch out from there. And that's only
awesome.
because I got into that one spot where I was, it was probably 4 or 5 consecutive casts where it's just one after the other.
How's the Potomac fishing right now? Just generally speaking.
Well, you would probably have to ask some other people. I've only fished I only fish about 2 tournaments on it a year. Just I'm more in Central Virginia. I'm not up Loudoun County anymore. So from the weights back in June, pretty average, but pretty darn good. I think it took about 17, 18 pounds on the boater side, and then it took 16 pounds on the co-angler side, which from 16 for first all the way up into, I'd say probably 18, 19, 20th place, you were looking at around 12 pounds, which for that day, specifically that day, we had 103-degree heat index, and it fished like it did in May. It was pretty cool to experience. So I think the Potomac's done pretty well this year.
No, it has. I think it's been very consistent, and I think there's only good things to come going into next year. Speaking of next year, then what are your plans tournament-wise? I know BFL is also going to like a 3-fish limit. Are you thinking about still being a co-angler, or are you going to make the jump to the boater side?
I most likely will never make that jump, just for the fact that, I've had a couple of years where it's been profitable, where I've cashed 3 checks and I'm in the green for the year. This year I've made $2,000 out of the back, and that paid for everything, and I pocketed the rest. But for me personally, for the time that I would have to allow myself, it's just not for me. The commitment and the time that I'd have to put in the pre-fishing, I'm just not in that phase of my life anymore. With both business and home obligations and work, and nothing negative about it, but I can't commit that time anymore. But also with the price, you have to fish in the top 15 to make your money back. And how many people, unless you're Chris Brummett, win 3 BFLs in the year and make about $12,000, that's different. But for the average person, you're going to be in the red, unfortunately.
I have to get Chris back on the show for a third time to talk about that, because he should have bought a lottery ticket after that third win. It's like, dude, the chances of winning 3 in a year, come on. Talent, of course, but at some point there's a little luck involved. Like, good God, man, that's amazing.
I'd like to know the statistics on that for most BFL wins in a year, because that might be
close.
That might be a record, because I know Ray Hanselman, he won 3 Toyota Series back to back to back. And I believe it was 2016 in the Central Division, and I think that was around Texas or Oklahoma.
I think it was Texas, Oklahoma, yeah.
Yeah, but he broke that record, and that still holds. Good luck beating a 150 to 200 boat field with that quality. That's salacious.
It is, and now you got me doing something tonight when we're done here, is to look that up before I have Chris on to talk about that, because it's, you want to call it lightning striking twice, a couple of perfect games. It's absolutely incredible. And you're right, though. You're doing it for the stupid trophy, because you're not doing it for the paycheck, because the paycheck is horrendous for the BFLs. It's gotten so bad. And that's always been my biggest argument, is no matter what the drama is about anglers versus co-anglers, if the checks were good, no one would care. People would show up. You
Absolutely.
know, let's just be real about this. I think it's also interesting that you have the cat series, you have the ABA, you have I think it's like Mare Marine or whatever they are down in the Carolinas there. They have their own series, Angler's Choice. There it is, Angler's Choice. There's way more competition now too, pulling away from that. And I get some arguments people have had about like, hey, listen, I just like going out by myself. I fish better. I don't have to go up my spots. It's just more relaxing. It's like, all right, fair enough. We do have a question here on Instagram from HSTINE 456. You know who you are. He asks, I'm going to be new to co-angling next year. If you only had 2 baits to throw as a co-angler, what would they be?
I would never leave the dock without a shaky head, and if it's up your alley, probably a drop shot. I mean, those two you can play vacuum cleaner in the back of the boat almost anywhere you go, and you're not
Yeah.
competing for water. You're doing your own thing, and you can really pick apart and there's plenty of fish that your boater will miss, and you can really pick them off that way.
Big D drop shot. Now, dude, you had a good year with the drop shot and that Okashira spin head too, dude. Like that was really good. I mean, Kerr is also tough. Kerr's really freaking tough, man. Especially some of the cards that you got dealt. If people wanted to get their boat in for you, you said you've already been booked for a while now. How do they get a hold of you, and what is the wait time right now?
So right now I'm working with 3 clients. We've got one set in stone with the project starting this Wednesday night, which I call the unboxing, which I'll go through and develop my plan and go through and figure out exactly how we're going to outfit it. We've got 2 others that are in the works for scheduling, not set in stone. So I mean, I can take about 2 boats at a time. Uh, Depending on the detail level, really the outfit itself. But what I'm doing is I have a 7-day turnaround, and I strategically plan this out to where I can have any boat come through, and I can have it. You can drop it off on a Sunday, pick it up the next Sunday, and you're ready to hit the water. So there's no more waiting to the winter, until the winter to have a 2-month waiting period. We can schedule you. It's first come first serve, and we can work and get you in as quickly as possible.
Oh, and then one thing you mentioned on we better also leave with this. You said placing orders for batteries and stuff. Do you buy this? How would that work if you say, Tom, you're going to need a battery, this, and this? Do I place that order and have it shipped to you? How does that all work?
So right now I'm working with a distributor for equipment. So with Garmin, Humminbird, and Lowrance. The only battery company that I am not directly affiliated, but this is again through the distributor, is with Powerhouse, which they personally, not biased, top rated battery that I recommend when it comes to lithium.
Yeah, that's important for people to know because there's so many companies down there now, and you want to make sure you get one that's not breaking the bank. I know there's some out there that are just Tesla size with how expensive they are. Dude, I really, really appreciate it. I know we're getting here up on time. I think we got most of the questions answered. Again, guys, this, of course, as always, will be re-uploaded tomorrow morning with all the episode description stuff and the audio polished up and all that fun stuff. Again, Greg, thank you so much for coming on tonight. Where can people find you so they can get their boat fixed up?
Before we do the sign off, I do have one thing to add in there. I am now the top referral for Green Top Outdoors over in Ashland. So if you go to Green Top and you buy your electronics from Steve Lane, you're going to get our information, our card. And if you are west of the 95 corridor, we can work something out and get you in, have that boat done in 7 days, and then you're back. And with anything that's around Richmond, you have Propeller Dynamics, which they do a quality job. I just don't know what their time frame is. I just know mine.
Yeah, because then you're getting into some turf war there if it's whether east or west of the 95. But dude, that's awesome that you've come such a long way, and you're gonna have the building here and help. Like, is this ever gonna be your full time thing, or do you want it to always be like more of like a side hustle and you have the 401k and stuff still?
Well, it's turned into a full-time job. So I basically, like I said, I run everything at night. So I do my day job, 40 hours a week, with up to 5 projects at a time, for building information modeling, and I will always do that. I've spent
Gotcha.
12 years in commercial construction. I've got a journeyman's license, my master's. I couldn't walk away from it. It's just I have fun every day I go to work. I don't work. I literally don't work. It just, everything's fun. But as far as New Horizon goes, I'm going to run that full time. And like I said, I can strategically map it out to where I can bring in work to where it's manageable at night. And then, occasionally Sunday mornings, I'll also work depending on, what the project entails. But that's the, I'd say that's the next 2 to 3 years, but I'll never leave as a draftsman.
There you have it, guys. He burns the candle at both ends, but he keeps on going. Greg, the man, the myth, and legend, he's been taking everyone's money from the back of the boat for a very long time. As always, guys, link in the episode description to everything we talked about today. Go give this guy your business. He is one of the best electrical dealers around, I think, in Virginia, in Maryland, in the Mid-Atlantic area. Go check him out. If you guys have any questions for me, you can also just shoot me an email at fishingthedmv@gmail.com. Check us out on Patreon. We're getting close to our other goal before I shut down Patreon completely. And it's just going to be just for those specific members until further notice. Like and subscribe to the channel. We'll see you next time on Fishing the DMV. Bye. You're listening to Fishing the DMV with your host, Thomas Ahrens. Fishing the DMV is brought to you by Jake's Bait and Tackle, located in Winchester, Virginia.
If that doesn't get you jacked up, I don't know what will.